Monica Makes It Happen podcast is proudly supported by Goya. If it's Goya, it has to be good. And by JP Morgan Chase, New York's hometown bank for over 225 years.
We have a big guest today. It's Carlos Naudon, the president and CEO of Ponce Bank. Clap, studio audience. We have a studio audience, just so you know. Oh. This is very big. This is big time. The reason I wanted to have you on the podcast was not just because you're, incredibly powerful, but also an incredible person. And you have an incredible story. And I don't know what's happening here, but the first 4 podcasts, we've had people who started with very little capital, and then they've become multi-billionaires, running billions of dollars. That is possible. And I think that's what I want my viewers to know. And it all starts with the story. So we're going to talk about his story first. We always go with the story because you have a great story. Then we're going to go into actual principles that you can take with you, and you can do it too, hopefully. And then the third part, I do like a speed round, all the things that you wanted to know it's interesting stuff. So we're going to have a few breaks coming up. But first, let's talk about your story.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. That's the hardest question to answer. Tell me about yourself, because what you decide to say now really tells us a lot about you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty typical of most of the people at the bank, because most folks have, immigrated here and have created successful ventures and careers and all that. So, I literally got off a boat at age 13.
13.
Yeah. Sure. In New York Harbor, of all places. And essentially, other than being in school, I've been in New York the rest of my life, really, although I lived in Baltimore for a while. And, typical of the immigrant youth, I did everything from, clean toilets to being a security guard and a butcher and everything in between.
I love that. And that's such a common theme, is doing everything and being humble enough. And I think that experience, do you think that made you who you are today as a multi-billion-dollar, running a multi-billion-dollar bank, and your success? Do you think that those experiences led to?
I think so, because you develop an empathy for people who do the things that you used to do, and you realize that some people can't go beyond that. But we try to help everybody grow, and at the end of the day, as our people grow, so does the bank. And the bank started 60 some years ago as a tiny little mutual bank, and today we're publicly traded, and we're $3+ billion in size.
Was it 13? You have 13 branches now. It seems like you're adding more. You're adding as I speak. These numbers, these numbers are growing just like a clock.
Well, I mean, you have to grow. So we're adding offices. We added an office in Coral Gables in Florida.
Well, that's where I went to school. I'm a Miami girl. But 2.8
my son
billion.
went to University of Miami.
No way. Yeah, what is this? I'm a Cane. The best people go to University of Miami. I mean, where could you go to college and you have your flip-flops on? And there's a pool. I mean, I remember thinking, am I really in college? Is this college? And I learned a lot there. I did it in 3 years. And do you know who the alumni? The Rock went there. John Cicada. We have a huge amount of alumni that did great things. But I love The Rock. But anyway, back to you. See, I digress. Talk to me at 13 years old. That must have been scary. I mean, do you have like a story that you remember coming over when you were 13?
Well, yeah, it's kind of funny because I brought a dog with me. That was, and so the dog was in the boat, and we arrived in the blinding snowstorm. And I hadn't seen too many snowstorms from where I was. And they put the ramp up, and this huge man with this, it was dead of winter, so he had multi-layers of army stuff and a hat and smoking a cigar. And he said something to me with a smile, and the dog and I didn't understand it. We ran away because we didn't know what it was,
Yeah,
it was
what
pretty funny.
What type of dog? I have to know. I love dogs. So what type of dog?
A terrier and pointer mix.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah,
Reminds
beautiful.
me of the, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. You go, and then all of a sudden the America, that American dream. That's why the Ellis Island. I'm on the board of the Ellis Island, and I told Fred, I said, you deserve a medal for what you've done, because you've done more for immigrant families. See, because of your own story, and that's what I love so much about the series for I don't know how many years, 15 years. I've been telling everyday stories, and when people go through it themselves, it's historical. What I say, it's hysterical, historical, because it's in your blood. You know what it feels like to come from another country and have nothing. And it's very scary. My mom, same story.
Mm-hmm.
She cleaned homes. And the story that I love is that, and I carry her with me. I am my mother, and I am my grandma and everything else. She would tell me, she would clean homes, and she would tell me that she would clean homes for some women that were obviously wealthy, and they would make her do it again, clean the floor again, and they would sit there and watch her do it. And I remember thinking, the power, it was just about power and money. And so now that I'm in a place of power, I always try to, like you said, advocate for the people who are cleaning the floor, who are doing those, fighting for people like my mom. I'm fighting for people like my mom. And I didn't know I was doing that, and I didn't know why I was so good at it. And it's because I was fighting for her.
Sure.
Like I somehow, maybe if I did therapy, that's what I would come up with. But for you, why do you fight so hard for immigrant families? Do you think it's because of your memories as a kid, or what? Have you done your own soul searching about why you do this?
Not really.
Okay, let's not do it now. Let's not do it now.
Let's have a little therapy session now.
Okay.
No, I think that I like the underdogs.
Yeah.
So.
Wait, are you an underdog? You consider yourself an underdog?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, listen, even a $3 billion bank in New York City is an underdog. Look at the size of $1 trillion banks. We compete head to head against them.
Yeah.
So no, absolutely. And the nice thing about viewing yourself as the underdog is you'll keep fighting. It's not like you're going to be happy and then do nothing.
That's
right.
No. Because you probably work harder than, right, Fred? Fred's here, our studio audience. You work harder than most people work. You do more in one day probably than most people do in weeks, right? Yes? Yeah, you can clap.
You can clap, Fred.
So, that's what's so interesting is now that I'm meeting super successful people like yourself, I'm noticing that. You're driven by a mission, though. So what's your mission? If you had a mission statement as a human being, I guess, not just as a bank. You represent Ponce Bank, of course, but...
Well, I think the mission really is to elevate communities. That's at the end of the day, because, it's an old cliche, all tide lift all boats, whatever that expression is. But it's true, if you can make a difference in one person in the community, that's going to make a difference and to the entire community. And often people, they follow your example.
Yeah.
So, if you help somebody, they're going to help somebody else, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, it's attractive. That is actually why I do these podcasts and these shows. I've done like 300 plus Facebook, just social media shows. Now we've had almost 2 years of TV shows, and now we're starting this podcast. Thank you for being in the first 5.
My pleasure.
You hit number 5. Because I always feel like if one person gets something from it, then that was it. Obviously, we have thousands of viewers, okay, people? We do. But before we go to
you told me millions.
Oh, okay. Maybe. I don't know who told you that. But anyway, I wish that was true. But your story coming here, we're going to show some of the incredible pictures. There's pictures of you in uniform.
Oh.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to tell me anything about serving, or do you want to tell me anything about...
No, I was in ROTC, and 2 months before I was supposed to get commissioned, they discovered that I had asthma, and so they retired me. So,
how old were you then? How old were you there in that picture? It was a great picture. I'll put that up.
I was probably 19.
19 years old.
18 or 19, yeah.
So what made you go into banking? Like, what was the
it was honestly purely accidental. I had worked as a CPA, and I wanted to go to law school at night, and I knew that as a CPA I couldn't. It was just too much. And out of the blue, somebody called me up who was running a trade association of banks, and a professor of mine in grad school had recommended that he talk to me. And 8 months later, I started working, which is silly because I was put to set up a marketing department. Here I am. I have a finance degree. I have a CPA. I'm a lawyer, or studied to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
What did I know about marketing? It turns out to be the best thing that I got exposed to.
Yeah.
You know, because at the end of the day, we're all selling and ourselves and our organizations.
That is so deep what you just said, because if you can't sell what you're doing, or if you're not the most excited person about it, how are you going to get anyone else excited about it? That's part of the job,
Absolutely.
right?
Part of my job is I'm selling our bank every day to my people, to the outsiders, to the regulators, to the legislators, to everybody.
You know, I had a boss once at a very big network, I'm not going to say who, saying, don't sell. And I said, what are you talking about? I'm selling my stories every day, because some of the stories I tell, and you know this, no one else is going to do it. We're the only ones. And that is such a big responsiability, Carlos, sometimes, because I'm like, we're the only, this is my moment to give them, maximum uplift,
Right.
But we're going to go to a commercial break. After the commercial break, we're going to hear more from Carlos, but I want more of the practical. We love the tips. And we've already heard a few here. Do everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Try everything. And then I also hear don't give up and the humility. But it's right after this commercial break. And we're back with Carlos Naudon, the president and CEO of Ponce Bank. So you probably have a Ponce Bank right across the street from your house, or you see them all the time. Well, this is the man that is running the show, and it all comes from an incredible story and I don't want to say from nothing to billions, but that's kind of what your story is. So hopefully that gives you some hope. I know it gives me hope. How many branches? Because I remember these numbers have changed.
We got 13 branches.
Okay, so
going
more
on
than I thought.
Yeah, going on 14, and then we have 6 loan production offices.
Okay, and then almost $3 billion in
Actually, a little over 3.
Oh, it's over 3. Okay, see, every day it gets bigger, so I have to.
3, yeah, it's almost 3.1.
You've helped 1,100 small businesses, or how
That's
many?
about 1,400 now.
1,400. Got to change this. 1,400, and you continually give back to the community. That's how I met you. I think it was at one of these dinners, and you're probably sponsoring or doing something. But why give back? Why is that such a big, that's a common thread among a lot of people that I've met that are super successful, is that they're constantly giving back. Why do you do that? Is that necessary? Is that Well,
it's part of a measure of my own success to help other people succeed. So I have knowledge, my staff has knowledge, our people have knowledge that we like to impart on others. And that's part of why we do what we call business boot camps. We explain to people about banks.
Let's talk about Business Boot Camp. It's called Business Boot Camp. You can sign up, and we're going to put the website, or what's the website? It's Ponce Bank. Ponce Bank. Oh, PonceBank.com. Okay, PonceBank.com. You go on there, and you can do a business boot camp, which I think everyone needs a coach. I've learned this. Everyone needs help, right? All the successful people, I thought they had a secret, manual, or there was a special room you could go into. It's literally just hard work and having a coach.
Absolutely.
And you do that for businesses.
Yes, and I live my life with people coaching me also.
Really?
Yeah, both. It works same way,
How do you find your coaches? What did you do to find the people that you probably put, you found people you like what they're doing, and then how did you do it?
I mean, it's interesting. It's people who are in a position of power, in the sense of being able to help you. They have the power to help you, right? And the willingness to do that. And sometimes it may be a professor. Other times it may be an alumni from the school. Other times it's a fellow coworker or somebody in another division that has a view that you don't have. One of the things that I like to do with people is that I will change their jobs. You may be running a branch today. Tomorrow you're going to be doing marketing. The next day you might be in charge of facilities, because you get different experiences.
I like that, because you can recalibrate at any minute and reset your career and your day. And I've seen that too. It doesn't matter how old you are or who you are and what your experience is. Sometimes you just have a natural instinct for things, right? Yeah? Now, are you one of those bosses that can tell in 30 seconds if someone is someone you want to hire, or do you need more time? And have you been wrong?
I'm very intuitive when it comes to that. And much to my chagrin, I was wrong a few months ago. Somebody sold me, I guess.
Sometimes it happens.
But
Sometimes
then you had to recognize that and then act on it, because you can't. If you know that you made a mistake, you got to rectify it.
Immediately fix
it.
Fix it. I like that. The program, for people watching, if they obviously they're probably not going to run a multi-billion. Maybe you will, and then call me and I'll do a follow-up Friday on it. But for people watching, what's the number one thing you could tell them if they only get one thing from this that you think would help them with their business, with what they're doing in corporate America, they're doing, wherever they are, but working in a restaurant?
Have faith in yourself. Really, a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't think that they can do something, and you'd be surprised. I think most people can do whatever they put their mind to. So don't be afraid to go for the next job, and don't be afraid to start your own business, or don't be afraid to go after a large corporation to give you a contract. You can do it. That's what I tell everybody at the bank. When I promote somebody, I don't wait until they can show me they can do it. I could know and say, hey, have faith, you can do it.
Oh, I like that. Some would say it's cart before the horse, but you're saying no, just, build it and they will come, kind of thing. Like, you just do it. Start doing. And, I noticed that too, especially in my career, with this podcast. I really wanted it. Mm-hmm. So then I just, got the microphones, and I'm like, and then I started doing it, and they're like, oh my God, she did it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Sometimes you just have to do it and then believe, like you said, that there's, it's possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'm surprised by, the guests that I get over here. Actually, we just had Sweet Tea, a rapper in here, a hip hop legend. So she was saying exactly what you were saying. Isn't that funny how it's like success in music, same for business, and then we had someone who owned the biggest Italian restaurant, the oldest Italian restaurant in Greenwich Village, and he said the same exact thing. I do everything, I've tried everything, I've cleaned toilets, and then here I am, and it's the same story over and over again. So maybe there is something to see here. But the boot camp, secrets to success. If someone takes your boot camp, you've seen complete changes. And is it little recalibrations, or are these major, like what are some of the major lessons that you've seen that might be a theme for if one business isn't working and the other is? Like, what's the difference usually?
Well, I mean, other than believing in yourself, you have to be realistic. You have to understand the strengths and weaknesses that what you have, and you need to pivot on that. And so if you don't realize that you're doing something wrong, you're going to go down eventually.
That's a good warning. That's a good warning. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that, to me, it's important. The other thing is understand what you don't understand. By that I mean realize that you may not know accounting, realize you may not know tax, and get help on it. Mm-hmm. Don't try to bully your way through it, because you're going to end up having mistakes.
You know what I like is that you just said you have your law degree, right? So you're pro education. So many times we have people who say, oh, you don't have to go to school. My mom was like, you're going to college, you're getting your master's degree, or I will kill you. And I think back then that was okay for parents to say. Now, obviously, you can't say that. But do you feel that way too? Education.
I was told that the next initials after my name will be R.I.P. if I got another degree.
I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So the initials are there, and it does command respect when you give your resume out and say, oh, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it commands respect when you have a meeting. And, somebody says, well, as a lawyer, I'm telling you this. And I can say, well, colleague, I can tell you something different,
Yeah.
And it makes a difference. You have credibility. Particularly true, when you're dealing with in the immigrant society, where the mainstream folks might not realize that you do have a brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that because when my mom did not have a high school education. And my dad had a PhD at LLM, JD. He was the most published in corporate taxation. He was a CPA. And can I just say my mother was smarter than him?
I believe.
There's something about people skills and street smarts, and that she had, and that he was incredibly intelligent. So I always say I'm the best of both, because I feel like I'm more like my mom. I don't think I did go to college, but I feel like I'm more like her. I wanted to be more like her, because she was actually also very religious. She was, Bolivian and Catholic, and she was always happy. So I kind of trended that way. My dad was a little somber. He was an atheist, Norwegian, but very good looking and very intelligent. I always kind of wanted to be the best of both worlds a little bit. So whenever I do my stories, I talk to both of them. Does that make sense? Because sometimes people want to know the facts. They just want to know that's why I'm so give me the facts. I want to know how did you do it? But then I also want to be touched by the story. And my mom would always give me the emotional side of things and the connection. So anyway, see, this is a therapy session for me. I don't know what's going on.
Well,
she's fine. I'm crying over here.
You have to have emotion in everything you do. Because if you don't have the sentiment, if you don't feel things,
now wait a second. Okay,
you're going to be cold.
You're one of the biggest bankers in the world. How is there emotion in banking? Tell me about that. Do you get when you change people's lives? Because you obviously money changes people's lives.
Yeah, I mean, look, one of
that?
absolutely. We talk about building intergenerational wealth, right? And it starts with a house. And so when you allow somebody to buy property, you're making a huge difference, and often people cry at closings. They do.
Yeah, that was my mom was a big deal. That was a big deal for her to own a home, and you do that at Ponce. And there's a whole. I know that you guys do a lot of education around that, especially estate planning and stuff like that.
Yeah, and first-time home buyers and those kind of programs.
You gotta tell those stories. All right, so another commercial break. When we come back, we do the speed round, which I always love. It's my favorite. And then I ask a surprise question, which you guys love too. Okay, we'll be back. Okay, we're back again with Carlos Naudon, the president and CEO of Ponce Bank. You probably see them everywhere in your community. They do such great things in our community. So that's why Carlos is here, but also you have a great story. Did you ever think that you would be in this position? Did you see yourself like this as running a multi-billion-dollar company and helping countless people every day with money?
Yeah, I did.
Did see it?
But you don't wake up to that fact, 50 years ago, I knew that I wanted to help small businesses, and that's why I got all the degrees and all that. And I had my own company for quite a while, 40 years, I guess. And so, I started a bunch of other companies, took a couple of them public and all that. And so when it came time to the bank, I had lots of client banks since the 80s. This one was one of them. And I saw what could be done with the bank and what the bank could do to the community. And that's why I said, okay, I'll take a run at it. And 11 years later, I'm still running.
11 years later, there we go. And it's Pix 11. I don't know. We love that number.
That was in soccer, I played number 11.
We have a picture of that. Isn't that something? Yeah, it's allegedly my lucky number. But don't tell my boss that, just in case, okay? He's always like, is that your lucky number? That's my lucky number is number 11. Now, if someone wants, funding, it's not always about the funding, right? Because some people are like, oh, I need the funding. What I'm learning is it's not always about the money, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just something else. But obviously we love the money. We love the funding for our small businesses. But so do you put a lot of emphasis on the money, or what do you put the emphasis on for small businesses?
There are a bunch of C's of credit, right? But one of them is character. And so you look at the character. Is that person, do you believe that he or she is capable of doing that and putting the money to good use and building the business and all that? And if you do, then you proceed.
How can you tell? But, you said you did make one mistake in 50 years, right? One mistake, but how do you know that? It's again, an intuitive feeling, or
a lot of it is intuitive. You also do your homework. I mean, in today's world, you can check the social media just about everybody, and many people put foolish things in
which is not a good thing if you want to work at Ponce Bank. We just heard that. Okay, right. So now a little speed round. I love the speed round. Your greatest success?
That's interesting. I guess, I don't know. That's a good question. 2 good kids.
Yeah. It's your kids. Yeah. Yeah, that tears you up.
Of course.
Yeah, and it's that is the hardest thing actually. I have 2 kids myself, and then them actually liking you, right?
Yeah, once they get old enough.
But they don't seem to be that into me right now. I don't know. It's the age though.
Yeah,
you know. How old are your kids? Are they
36 and 34?
Oh, wow, yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you had them when you were 4. I get it. I'm not telling you how old mine are. No, I'm kidding. It's 11 and 12, and that is the biggest, I think. When my mom was dying of cancer, she said to me, and I had this career, this TV career, which I think I've done pretty well. And she said, no, it's about the kids. It's about, watch those kids. And she was pushing for me to be a career woman because, back in the day, she couldn't pursue that.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting. On her deathbed, she was very like, it's about you being a mom. Like, it's not all this other stuff. It's, you go like in a second. So greatest regret. I hate to ask you that, but is there something that we could learn from? Do you have a regret? Do you have like Frank Sinatra regrets? I have a few.
No, it's funny because things happen that you may not like it, but the true test of your character is getting around that and resolving that issue.
That's good.
Yeah,
someone said like it's a wall. When you get the wall, it's like an obstacle. You just go around the wall. It's like, you got to go right. You got to, Fred just said go through it.
I mean, there's everything. Every day you have some regret about something you didn't do in the morning, didn't pet the dog before you left, that kind of stuff.
I never do that. I always remember my dog.
But
my husband maybe not, but my dog, yes. Yes.
There you go. There you go.
What would surprise me about you? Is there something that would surprise me?
That's a good question.
I like how he's really thinking them through. Sometimes I've had guests who just answer it, and then I'm sure they regret their answer. They're like, "Oh God, can you fast?" There's no erasing on the podcast. There's nothing like that. No editing.
It's funny. I'm pretty much of an open book, So I thought
that would surprise people that you're an open book, because what you've been through. Talk about Shark Tank. You lived the Shark Tank, and the fact that you haven't become jaded at all. Not to say that you're not, I'm sure a killer, but do you feel that? Do you feel that that's surprising that maybe you haven't lost that,
So I boxed.
You're a boxer.
Yes.
What is it about boxers? It's like boxing is like life,
Yeah, it's a great exercise. It's a great relaxer, Not that you're getting whacked in the head, but no, it is because you're living that moment. You can't ignore what you're doing, and so most people would be surprised to know that I actually box.
I didn't have a picture of that. Somebody get, but did you ever? And also after you beat each other up, you hug. There's a sportsmanship to it,
right?
So it's almost like that's part of the game, is that we're going to beat each other up as human beings sometimes, but then there's that.
Yeah, but there's no malice. It's not that you want to beat somebody up. It's really more about technique and anything else.
Technique, I like that. All right, and that's the same for business. So you boxing, to be a good business person, you've taken your boxing skills in there. I like that. Okay, and then who do you think who should be on my next podcast? Who would you book on my next podcast? This is how I get the best guests, by the way. Who would you think would you like to hear from and have someone?
Man of the street.
Yeah. Maybe one of your small businesses. We'll have one of your small businesses. Charles, it's been, no, you were going to say something.
No, I really think that the world lives by people not like me that are running an organization, but everyday people, and I think everybody has a story. I think that's important.
Everybody has a story.
Yeah.
It totally keeps us in business, doesn't it? Good Lord. I could just go outside and, like you said, and controversially speaking, I hope my bosses don't watch this, they probably do. I every day have come up with a story, and they're like, God, how do you vet that? How do you know? It's literally people reach out to us, and we go, and we just say yes, and we meet them, and 9 out of 10 times, I don't think I've had any regrets about any of the stories we've done. They're incredible people just trying to make it here. In New York City. So anyway, Carlos, I hope you'll be back.
Be glad to. I enjoyed it.
This was fun. Now that you know the whole routine, you know my questions. I'm going to come up with new ones. And I think what I got from your story was that, you know, you can rise to certain levels, but still stay very grounded and like an everyday person. Because I feel that. I feel that. And if anyone's watching, I hope you got something from the story. And you know how to reach us. Monica Morales TV on all of our social media platforms. And of course, if you want to take that special boot camp, that business boot camp, just go to poncebank.com. And we'll link you there, of course, on all of our platforms. I hope you're looking at pix11.com and our YouTube channel. And every night on Pix 11 News at 5:45 and 6:45. You're making money happen.
Thank you.
See you next time.